Well, looks like the very delicate ceasefire in Gaza could be breaking down, as according to the media, the two sides accuse each other of violating the ceasefire. But is that what happened? Is that what happened? Well, let's take a look for a second at what we have over here in the BBC, where it says Israel strikes Gaza and suspends aid delivery after IDF and Hamas accuse each other of breaking ceasefire. And of course, when it's the BBC, they will begin that little bulletin with the Israeli action, right? So Israel strikes Gaza and suspends aid delivery. But why did they do that? Well, they say it's two sides accused each other. Let's look at a report here of Trey Yingst at Fox News.
Military official telling Fox News that Hamas violated the ceasefire agreement, launching an RPG and a sniper attack against Israeli forces inside Gaza. In response, the Israeli military bombed targets in the southern and northern parts of the enclave. This military official telling Fox this is a bold violation of the ceasefire. Remember, the Israelis are still in control of 53% of Gaza. They have remained on high alert over concerns that Hamas might violate the agreement. And they built out a series of preparations for this very possibility. Already today, there are calls from Israeli ministers on the far right, including Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, to resume the war against Hamas. But we do understand Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to hold security consultations today about this Hamas ceasefire violation to determine the next steps. All of this taking place as U.S. officials are set to visit the region this week, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. And last night, the State Department released a warning of their own against Hamas. They said the United States has informed the guarantor nations of the Gaza peace agreement of credible reports indicating an imminent ceasefire violation by Hamas against the people of Gaza. So we're looking at two different things here. One, a violation of the ceasefire against Israeli forces, and two, a warning by the U.S. State Department that Hamas intends to carry out more attacks against their own people. Remember last week, we saw those horrific execution videos of Hamas gunmen roaming the streets of Gaza and killing their opponents. And they still have not fulfilled all of their agreements as it relates to ceasefire deal plans. And we're talking about phase one here. They were supposed to release the bodies of all of the hostages that remain inside Gaza. And while overnight they returned the remains of 2 additional hostages, including hostage Ronen Engel, there are still 16 hostages that are deceased inside the Gaza Strip that Hamas must return as part of their agreed upon deal. And so moving forward, we have to wait and see what happens as it relates to this ceasefire violation. But again, the latest information that we have, according to the Israeli military, Hamas has violated the ceasefire agreement by firing on Israeli forces inside Gaza. And in response, the Israeli military launched new airstrikes against the enclave. Guys?
So Trey, you mentioned the executions this week. There's also been some infighting since the ceasefire began among Hamas forces inside Gaza. To what degree should we be concerned that that stability could lead to this whole thing falling, that instability could lead to this whole thing falling apart?
Look, the onus here is on Hamas. President Trump released a 20-point peace plan giving Hamas amnesty, actually giving them the opportunity to lay down their weapons and commit to peace and even be able to stay in Gaza. It was, in some ways, a sweetheart deal for Hamas. But this is a terrorist organization, and so often when they are given an opportunity, they don't take the opportunity. And so the groundwork is laid for a ceasefire agreement to complete phase one and to enter into phase two, which would include them laying down their weapons and ultimately creating a scenario where Gaza can be rebuilt and the Palestinian people there, more than 2 million of them, can have some semblance of peace. But this will require those officials that remain inside Gaza and also in Qatar to adhere to the agreement that President Trump has laid out.
Some good reporting there by Trey Yingst, who, by the way, is not afraid to criticize Israel harshly, as he did during the war on quite a few occasions. So, you know, I do think he's quite credible when he comes out that strongly against Hamas, because he hasn't always had And it was Hamas that violated the deal. They fired an RPG on an Israeli vehicle, and 2 Israelis were killed. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in this violation by Hamas. But according to the BBC, both sides accuse each other of violating the deal, right? It always has to be both sides. It can't be one side violated. Not to mention the fact that Hamas haven't returned all the deceased people, which is the first phase of the ceasefire deal that they were supposed to do. Yeah, they returned the living hostages, which is incredible. Incredible achievement by Trump and incredible that it happened. We're still waiting for the deceased people to be returned. They haven't done that yet. And this also brings us to the second issue that Trey talked about over there, which is the fact that Hamas are brutalizing their own people inside the Strip. And America are telling them to cease and desist from doing that. This is Gaza, inside Gaza. Look what they're doing to torturing him.
أقول لك عين مخدرات توب لك عين مخدرات حماس ما انتهتش 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 وقف حماس ما انتهتش والله حماس ما انتهى حماس ضايل
Notice the music. Notice the music. And why? We see in the last part of that clip that he had something to say about the ceasefire, saying thank you for the ceasefire. And then they went and they did that to him, to a man inside Gaza. More clips of Gazans being brutalized. Hamas thugs, face covered, dragging someone through the streets. I'm scared my channel's going to get demonetized, or the videos are going to get demonetized for showing this kind of thing, yeah? Like, I might have to cut this clip in the middle once they start beating him, which is, of course, what is going to happen. And in front of everyone, so you will see what happens. This is what happens when you go against Hamas. This is what happens when you go against Hamas inside Gaza. This is what they're doing. I think we're going to stop it at there, just because I don't want to get demonetized. I don't want to get demonetized. YouTube doesn't like showing gruesome violence, blood, and torture, rightfully so, because that's not what this platform is for. So you got to be careful showing that kind of thing. That's what Telegram is for. But you got the picture. You see what they're doing to their own people. Shutting down, brutalizing all the people who dissented in any way against Hamas during the war, breaking the ceasefire with Israel by firing that anti-tank missile at a vehicle, killing 2 Israelis. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed. And in response, Israel bombarded positions in Gaza and withheld some of the aid, yes. But Hamas violated the ceasefire, my friends, Hamas. But if we were to go to the BBC, then IDF and Hamas accuse each other of breaking the ceasefire. Well, what do you think, BBC? What do you think about who broke the ceasefire? Why do you just relay what each group says? Aren't you supposed to be some type of arbitrator of truth? Have you done any investigation into the timing of the Israeli actions and the Hamas actions and who did what first in order to make a determination? But they're too scared. They're too scared to do that. They have to both sides it. They have to say it was Hamas and Israel. It was both sides. BBC. Very unfortunate what's happening now to the people in Gaza. And this is something that I think a lot of people anticipated, that Hamas is going to try to retake control. They obviously have no intention of disarming. They have no intention of leaving the governing of the Strip. And the activists in the West who have been protesting against this war, against Israel, are completely numb, silent in the face of these brutal actions that are taking place in Gaza. Actions that Israel never took when their army was in Gaza. Show me one video of Israeli soldiers doing to a Gazan what Hamas just did there, of dragging him around and then beating him with the stick or throwing the rock on him like that. Show me one video. You won't find. Israel didn't do to the Gazans what Hamas do to their own people, to the Gazans, as we saw in the video. And they broke the ceasefire by not returning the deceased people. And they broke the ceasefire by attacking the Israeli soldiers, killing 2 of them. This whole thing is going to break down pretty quickly. Thank God the hostages are out, at least, as that was a big source of anxiety and a force on Israel to do something at all times. Now Israel can act with a bit more control and a bit more calm that the hostages are home. But it looks like the ceasefire is breaking down because Hamas violated it. BBC, Hamas violated it. Not each sides accuse each other. Hamas violated. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Insightful Nomad. I will see you in the next video.